OHDSI is an open science community. We're trying to generate evidence using healthcare data to help patients make better decisions and provide better clinical care.
What excites me is the number of new people that are here and how it's grown from where we were 7 years ago. And what I see is a lot more of this, more collaboration and building this community even bigger than what it is today.
One of the great things about OHDSI is that people are working together because they want to work together.
And it really is a community that is very welcoming and inclusive. Any point in your career, it's nice to have people who are just with you in your journey as you're developing something, especially hard things. We can do hard things, but it's much better to do them as a team.
The older leadership takes a really active role in providing mentorship and really believing that leaders are not bosses, but are individuals who should help others achieve what their career goals might be. Our young researchers here are pushing forward some of the most important research.
The best studies and the best methods that we produce are coming from these teams of multiple universities and institutions, because this is where we can exchange ideas and this is where our individual experience and knowledge shines.
A community of researchers, people who care about evidence generation and improving healthcare, are together to make it happen.
So at the heart of our objective to generate reliable evidence is a requirement that we figure out some way to bring together data from around the world. And so the development of the OMOP Common Data Model has provided a standardized framework where data sources of any different type in any different location can actually be brought together. So it's really exciting to see that the OMOP Common Data Model is now being used by over 450 databases in over 40 countries, collectively covering over 900 million patients, which is 12% of the world's population.
If you're nice, bright, and hardworking, and you have some interest in using evidence to improve healthcare, you belong in OHDSI. It is a broad range of people that participate, from the data, programming, statistical methods, industry, academics, government. We really cover the board, and we do it around the world.
Thank you. A lot of bright people in the room, so that will be fine. Welcome. My name is Peter Rijnbeek. I'm head of the Department of Medical Informatics, and I welcome you to already the 5th OHDSI Europe Symposium. So it's a kind of an anniversary for us. I first want to thank our sponsors. Without these companies, we would not be able to do this here at the ship, and also give all the tutorials yesterday at the Erasmus MC. And especially like to thank Odysseus this year, because they are gold sponsor of the symposium. So we are here together as a community, an open science community, and one of our biggest goals is to really drive the scalability and the use of real-world data and generate reliable real-world evidence. And in the last 5 years in Europe, a lot of things happened, and I'm very proud to see all the contributions today from many of you in the room. And the mission of OHDSI in general is on the screen, and I always like to read it out loud: to improve health by empowering a community to collaboratively generate the evidence that promotes better health decisions and better care. So we really try to facilitate collaboration, and these meetings here in Rotterdam are part of that. And the vision is really to have a world in which observational research produces a comprehensive understanding of health and disease. And we try to put all the necessary components in place to do that at a very large scale on a global level. So why a specific OHDSI Europe? Well, I think that especially in Europe, there's a lot of opportunities considering the large amount of different vocabularies that we use, many different databases, different structures of databases. And we have a big task here to improve interoperability of data, to make better use of that data to improve patient care. And that's also reflected in the number of projects that are currently active in Europe. Many new projects also are starting up and building on top of the OMOP Common Data Model, which is fantastic. Even within institutions, so in my own institution in Erasmus MC, there are currently like 4 projects, European projects, using the OMOP Common Data Model. Few of them actually didn't know until later that another department was using OMOP in their projects. And I think this is just a start, and definitely in our university we'll be using the OMOP Common Data Model much, much more. What's also great to see is that due to projects like the Eden project, we will talk about a little bit later in the agenda, there are now more than 200 data sources in Europe standardized to the OMOP common data model. And that's a great thing, but it's only the start of the journey. So, of course, I'm very happy that we have all these databases in the OMOP CDM, but what I really like to see is studies across these databases at a very large scale. And I think at an unprecedented scale, we could generate evidence in Europe now. So the objectives of OHDSI Europe is to enable that and help out in Europe, focusing on the European challenges and opportunities. But it's really about community building and being a point of contact, organizing these European symposia, train the stakeholders like we did yesterday, which was fantastic to see more than 200 people join in Erasmus MC. It was much more than last year. And so a great achievement already. And also to stimulate the national collaboration, so we have some presentations from the national nodes on the agenda as well. It all started in 2018 at the Erasmus MC still. We were in one of the rooms there with about 200 participants, 24 countries already and some posters. But then over time, it actually went up quite quickly. Still 2019, we were still in Erasmus. But then 2022, after Corona, there was a big need to meet each other. And so there was a lot of people coming here to the ship. And I also like to share with you this nice drawing that Sarah Seeger, she is in the room somewhere, made for me at the end of the symposium, or after the symposium, and I received this at Erasmus, and it was really great to get that. And that's also demonstrating how important the community is and what a kind of fantastic people we have in our community that can make these type of drawings. Then last year, we increased, we were at 100 posters already, but this year it's even bigger. And especially the contributions, the collaborator showcase contributions were even higher. And that's what we want to see, right? So not only the presentations, but also people showing, demonstrating their use of the CDM, and many more demos. Also this year, there's much more demos, as you will see in the afternoon. 13 software demos, which is great. And you also see the national nodes there in the meeting room. I want to also thank the faculty, the people that gave courses in Erasmus the last 2 days. You see some of them here on the screen. What I was really happy about was that already at the start on Saturday we had the open source session, and that was packed. And that's a good sign. So people are interested in building new open source tools for the community. But also on the second day, there was a lot of people joining the ETL tutorial from Maxime and Melanie, which is also very important because that means that you are either starting to do ETL or you are in ETL and you have questions and you then join this meeting. So be aware that we are also available for questions after the symposium. Now, if we look at this year, so we already went up from 28 countries to 37 countries are in this room, and that's great. From Europe, but also far away, actually, people come now to this symposium. Stakeholders that are in the room is kind of stable over the years, which I think is good. It's a good representation from the stakeholders that we want to target. But I found this slide extremely interesting. So this shows actually the comparison between last year and this year. And what I really like is that the OHDSI tools and methods are being used much more now than last year, which is what we like to see. And we also see that, interestingly, that a large number of you, more than 40%, have a CDM instance that they can work with, which is quite amazing also. And then finally, the number of new people. So there are, again, this year, more than 20% of the people in the room are here for the first time. And what I like to ask, if the people that are new here for the first time, if you could stand up for a second so we can see who you are. That's fantastic. Well, welcome, and note that around you there are people who are here for many years, and I think we are a really open community, so do interact with these people. It's really fantastic to see this large new group joining. Thank you for that. So the agenda for today is we're going to start with a nice talk from Patrick about where we have been and where we can go together as in OHDSI. And then we have a selection of presentations from European initiatives, and also the national nodes are presented there. We then have a coffee break that's in the same room as where you entered. And then after that, we have the rapid fire presentation. So those were selected abstracts that can present their work. And then we go for lunch. And the lunch is not here, but is at the floor, the B deck, where we have the poster sessions. And we stay there for quite a while, from 1 till 4 o'clock, or just before 1. And everything will happen there, demos and posters. The only thing that will happen up here is the mentor meetings. So some people that are really new have signed up to speak to some of the more senior people in OHDSI, and that will happen just in front of this room in some standing tables, and you should have been given instructions by Ross Williams, who organized that. Then we come back for the final session. That will be again in this room, where we see some results from the Eden project and also from Darwin EU. And then Patrick will do an interacting thing with you to figure out what we actually should do next year and when we would be happy next year at the symposium. And then finally there is a closure, which probably I have to do. And so with that, I want to give the word to Patrick.
Thank you, Peter. And I just want to extend additional thanks not only to Peter for his tremendous leadership, but also to the Erasmus MC team. This is the first year we did the two days of workshops and tutorials ahead of the symposium. So in the past, we've said, like, looking forward to the rest of it, but actually already having 2 days engaging with all of you has been really wonderful. And I want to thank the Erasmus team for their leadership and support in making this possible. So Peter asked me to talk about OHDSI in terms of a global perspective and the role that Europe plays in it. And I scratched my head a little bit to try to figure out how can we objectively evaluate how far we've made it on the journey as part of OHDSI Europe. And so I thought in 2024, there's only one objective criteria we could use. And that would be ChatGPT. Can I switch the screens? So we would have to just ask our GPT overlords, what is OHDSI Europe? And we would see that OHDSI Europe is a regional chapter of the global OHDSI initiative dedicated to improving health outcomes by harnessing the power of observational health data. OHDSI Europe has got a long story, apparently. It focuses on fostering collaboration and research from European stakeholders, including researchers, healthcare providers, policymakers, to leverage large-scale health data for advancing medical knowledge and patient care. Key activities and objectives include data standardization, collaborative research, capacity building, policy and advocacy, community building. OHDSI Europe is part of the broader global OHDSI network, which aims to create a world in which observational health data is used to better understand diseases, treatments, outcomes, ultimately leading to improved patient care and public health. So you know you've made it as an OHDSI Europe community if GPT knows who you are and doesn't hallucinate wildly. But I figured we, of course, generally need some sort of grounded negative control to have an objective evaluation. So we probably also need to know, who is Peter Rijnbeek? So Peter is a prominent figure in the field of observational health data sciences and a key contributor to the OHDSI community. He's known for his work in developing methods and tools to leverage large-scale health data. Key points that you all need to know about Peter. His academic role. He's a professor at the Department of Medical Informatics at Erasmus, and his academic work is focused on the use of health data. OHDSI involvement. Peter's actively involved in the OHDSI community, particularly with OHDSI Europe. Research contributions. His research includes developing methods for data integration, machine learning applications in healthcare, epidemiologic studies, educational efforts. Peter is also involved in teaching and mentoring the next generation of researchers in medical informatics. He provides training on using OHDSI tools and frameworks. And overall, Peter
Peter's work has significantly impacts the field of health data science, contributing to the advancement of research methodologies to better utilize health data for improving public health and patient care. So Peter, you know you've made it when GPT doesn't hallucinate about you, but can celebrate all of your leadership, so thank you for that. So we figured, you know, GPT doesn't hallucinate at all, so given this, we should really ask a question to draw a picture of Peter Rijnbeek leading the OHDSI Europe Symposium. Well, I mean, maybe? All right, that's no good, that's no good, that's no good, that's no good. I'm gonna change that. Hosting the OHDSI Europe Symposium on the SS Rotterdam, of course. You know you've made it when your bio's on ChatGPT, your community's on GPT, and it can draw a faithful representation of you leading the community on GPT. So apparently we have made progress. The world knows about our work. It knows about our leader. Probably doesn't know so much about what we look like. So that probably suggests that there's still an opportunity for us to make some progress there. So with that as context, remember that ChatGPT could be the source of our objective evidence for just a little bit. So I want to reinforce what Peter started by talking about OHDSI's mission. We're here collectively as a global community to improve health by empowering a community to collaboratively generate the evidence that promotes better health decisions and better care. And Peter asked me to just specifically make sure that I highlight, for those of you who haven't been able to come to all of our global events, which is totally understandable because there's meetings going on in 21 time zones every single week, to highlight what's going on globally, but also the role that Europe fits in that picture. So in the next 15 minutes or so, I'll try to go through that. So first, I want to talk about how we specifically are trying to collaborate as an OHDSI community. There are multiple opportunities for us to collaborate. That includes in the area of open community data standards. We try to establish ways for us to have data that'll work together across our global community. We collaborated open source development, establishing analytic tools that can run against the OMOP Common Data Model. We collaborate in methodologic research to establish scientific best practices for how to generate reliable evidence from our data. And we collaborate in clinical evidence generation to try to actually produce answers to real questions that patients need the answers to. Now, we do this across our distributed data network, and specifically when we talk about the OHDSI network, really what we're talking about is any organization who has data, who has converted that data to the OMOP Common Data Model, and is interested in the possibility of executing standardized analysis to contribute back evidence. And it's important to recognize that there's no fee to entry, there's no specific sticker that you're going to get to say you're part of the OHDSI data network. What it means is you have access to data and you're willing to put that data to use to generate reliable evidence. Now, to generate evidence isn't just about having data, it's about actually bringing important research questions to the data. And so we conduct network studies as a mechanism of taking a research question, pre-specifying that in a protocol, generating an analysis specification, and then turning that code into something that we can share to the data network, and that data partners, all of the 50% of you in the room who have access data, have the opportunity but not the obligation to take that data, take that analysis, execute against your data, and share back aggregate summary statistics without the exchange of any patient-level data, so that collaboratively we can disseminate evidence. So when I think about the OHDSI community and all of the things that we're doing, it's really humbling for me to see all of you here as a community that are contributing to pieces. And the most frequent thing, since there's so many new folks that come here, the most frequent thing we hear from newcomers is that the OHDSI community seems like it could be a little bit overwhelming because all of this stuff is happening and there's a question of like, how can I fit into the picture? And the thing that I want to encourage you to recognize is that you don't need to be able to do everything. The whole point of collaboration is that together, if we can do all of these things, that individually all we need to do is find our place to make our own individual contribution. So you can be here if you are a newcomer and you're interested in data standards. This is the community for you. You can be here if you're a developer and want to contribute to open source software. There's a place for you in the community. You can be here if you want to do methodologic research to establish new practices for how to generate reliable real-world evidence. You can be here if you have a research question that you want answered and you believe that you can translate that question into an analysis that will generate reliable evidence. Many of you are here, Many of you are here because you have access to patient-level data, you have standardized that data or in the process of doing so, and you're keen to understand how you can leverage that data. And certainly, I hope that you all want to be here at the end, which is disseminating reliable evidence to the world so that we can make better health decisions and better care. All of this is something that I hope will continue to remain a focus of the OHDSI Global Symposium, the global community. But here at the OHDSI Europe Symposium, you're going to see a lot of really tremendous work and the leadership from our OHDSI Europe community in each of these pieces. Now, at a global level, OHDSI has grown quite large. I'm going to be showing you work from our annual report from our global community, and already these numbers are starting to be out of date only 6 months ago. This is our map of collaborators. We have over 3,700 researchers in 83 different countries who have basically signed up to participate in the OHDSI community. Show of hands, who has not yet signed up in this room to be an OHDSI collaborator? There's got to be some newbie who hasn't actually signed up. There's a couple hands, okay. It's super hard to become a member of the OHDSI community. You go to ohdsi.org and you just click, I want to be a member, and then you're a member. So one of the interesting things, though, I looked up as I was preparing for this, so we actually now are up to 4,000 active collaborators in our OHDSI Microsoft Teams environment, which basically provides you access to all of the collaborations that are going on. But our communications director, Craig Saxon's been doing a really wonderful job of also trying to amplify the messages outside of the community to the external world. It turns out that we now have 7,500 followers on LinkedIn from our OHDSI page. And I'm totally not a social media guy, so I don't really understand how all of this works. But that basically means that we have this ridiculously large community of people who want to work and an even larger group of lurkers that want to watch what you all are doing. And to give a perspective of 7,500 members, that's more than followers of the International Society of Pharmacoepidemiology. That's more than the number of followers of the American Medical Informatics Association in terms of those that are watching and trying to learn from the community. So just to suggest that as a recognition that I want you to all enjoy the time that you have together here, but also recognize that the world is watching all the work that you're doing, and it doesn't just end with a nice day here on the SS Rotterdam. Within OHDSI, because this is a global effort, we have to figure out ways to support the regions and individual countries so that everybody can find the right point of contact. I'm going to highlight that you'll have a nice poster of the Collaborative Showcase from Cynthia, who's going to be talking about the regional work that we're doing in Africa in partnerships with European institutions, so I encourage you to talk to Cynthia. And right after I talk, Renske is going to actually share tremendous progress on the OHDSI Europe National Nodes that is a really inspirational model of thinking about new ways of working and collaborating and finding partnerships that can be sustainable. Also just highlight that there are a lot of activities like this that are going on around the world, and they are not restricted to those in the region. In fact, our leadership from our OHDSI India chapter wanted me to specifically call out the fact that they're going to hold their first symposium on October 5th. Our global symposium will be in the US later in October, and our OHDSI Asia Pacific Symposium is going to be held in Singapore in December. And you're all encouraged to join those meetings and engage with the community. We also have foster collaborations through work groups, and work groups are really just individuals or groups of individuals that decide that there's a shared interest on a topic that they want to focus on and collaborate on together. We have numerous work groups in the OHDSI community, and all it takes for you to want to start a work group is to raise your hand and say, hey, I've got an interest in a topic, and I think that other people might have a shared interest, and you can partner in that. One of the things I heard over the weekend actually was frustration that there was a work group and they weren't doing exactly what you wanted to do. And I encourage and actually implore all of you to recognize that you all are leaders in our OHDSI community. If there's something that you think needs to be done that isn't being done, do it, lead it, contribute it. And if there's something that needs collaboration, there are lots of leaders in the community that want to be the connectors to bring out all of you together. Now, this is the cartoon that most of you are familiar with, the OMOP Common Data Model version 5.4, a data standard that has been remarkable in its endurance and particularly in its ability to work across Europe. I think less of you recognize that it was actually OHDSI Europe collaborators, Renske and Martijn, who actually developed the appropriate entity relationship diagram that is the cornerstone. If you are using the OMOP Common Data Model and need to know all the tables and fields, then you probably don't want this PowerPoint slide because it's super hard to read, but it's a remarkable document that you can print out, and I do have a copy hanging on my wall as a mechanism of remembering all of the content that we're trying to learn from. The OMOP Common Data Model has been adopted tremendously globally. We have over 530 data partners in 49 countries, collectively representing 12% of the world's population. But what I want to highlight is the leadership role that you all are playing in OHDSI Europe. What we're trying to establish globally is an evidence network, a group of data partners who are willing to raise their hand and say that I want to participate in studies to generate evidence. And at the global level, we're trying to establish best practices for how data partners and data network can work together to openly share and participate. And this is something that we're still working on at the global level. However, I think the best demonstration of that is here in Europe with the Eden project, where we have 187 data partners in 29 different countries that have already gone through the journey of data standardization. And I'll highlight the leadership of Monsi, who has done a tremendous job in managing this community and cultivating a collection of institutions that are following consistent practices to standardize their data and really enabling, unlocking the potential of what's available in Europe. And I want to highlight that when I talk about OHDSI Global, that Europe is really driving the majority of the work. The Eden project alone represents over a third of the OHDSI CDM adopters around the world and over 59% of the countries that are represented in the OHDSI Global community. So very much OHDSI Europe is kind of the driving force within our OHDSI Global community. Now, OHDSI, the Eden project also established a portal as a mechanism to have a data catalog for all of the Eden data partners. And this has demonstrated not only what it takes to establish a data network, but how one can communicate what is the content of the data and how to work through, how to socialize what's possible once a network is established. And it's been great work within the Eden project to really try to establish practices for thinking about talking about data networks in general. I want to highlight that our colleagues from EMA are here, and they're going to be talking about their real-world data catalog effort. And I want to strongly encourage all of you who have data in the OMOP Common Data Model to register your database in the EMA data catalog. I also very much appreciated that when I took this screenshot, the EMA RWE catalog says it was due to a new release taking place June 3rd between 8 and 9. You should refrain from submitting submissions here. I think that they knew that this meeting was going to take place and that you guys were going to bring down their system with all of your submissions to the EMA RWD catalog. One of the things actually important in registering your data is that you're able to actually identify not just what your data is, but if you are participating in data networks such as Eden, but also whether or not you have standardized your data. And so this is an example of in your registration, you can actually say that your data has been mapped to the OMOP Common Data Model. And I encourage you all to do that because this is really going to be a great way to promote visibility of your data, your network, and to identify further collaborations across Europe and the broader world. EDEN hasn't just established a data network, though, it's also led in advancing the science of data networks. I'm going to highlight work that's actually been published just this year throughout this presentation to show you really where we've grown to. There's a paper that's in JAMIA that focuses on EDEN and the lessons learned from building out a data network, specifically the tactical and pragmatic steps of what it takes to take a data partner from interest to participation through having their data standardized and ready to generate evidence. That was led by Erica Voss. But here today, there's also really great science that is being presented that I encourage you to check out. Sofia and Maxim are going to be presenting the CDM onboarding package, which is a tool that's been established to help you really understand whether a database is truly standardized and ready for use. And Evanet's going to be presenting a nice poster about lessons learned from the data partner review, about the process of how do we actually ensure data quality is upheld so that we can really have confidence in the evidence that we're generating. There's been a lot of lessons learned that extend well beyond the EDEN project and should really factor into all of our thinking as we move forward as a community. A big effort this year has been on the OHDSI standardized vocabularies. We've put particular effort at a global level to think about how to harden our processes and improve the transparency and communication about the vocabulary. One of the things I want to reinforce and highlight is that almost everybody in the vocabulary team is based in Europe. And so it's really Europe's needs from a data network perspective that are driving a lot of what's needed for the vocabulary, but it's also the expertise in Europe that's making it possible for us to establish a roadmap and a consistent way to think about using ontologies as a key enabler and foundation to all of our data models. Just this year, we finally published a paper that specifically highlights the principles of the OHDSI standardized vocabularies. And I really encourage you to take a look at this. We expect this to be a kind of a key publication that will really reinforce why we believe the rigor that we put into this work is worthwhile as it relates to standardizing the content of our data. What we've also done is create a rigorous process for the vocabularies that involves having an explicit roadmap and a defined set schedule of releases of vocabularies. The vocabulary was released in February of 2024. How many of you are currently using the February 2024 vocabulary release? Wah, wah. All right. One of the things that I will implore all of you about is that if we are really going to work as one community and one network, we need to figure out how to make sure that we're kind of adhering to standards at a consistent level. And the vocabulary team has done a tremendous job of improving the quality of the vocabulary, but it's going to be incumbent on all of us to take advantage of that. Just go out to athena.ohdsi.org, download the vocabulary, and take advantage of it in your next ETL refresh. The next vocabulary after this is going to come out in August, and there will be increased improvements in areas. And as we consider this a continuous improvement process, it's going to be important for all of us to keep up to speed. OHDSI's made huge progress in open source development, led also within our OHDSI Europe community by Martijn Schumi. The Hades set of open source packages provides us scientific best practices codified to the OMOP Common Data Model for us to do characterization, estimation, and prediction work. But it's a community-wide effort that's a lot of great progress. What I also want to highlight, though, and shout out is the Darwin EU development team. There's been tremendous work done in the context of the Darwin project, and the EMA and the Darwin Coordinating Center had the foresight to recognize that this is not just a public good, not just a utility for the EMA, but something that could be a public resource for everybody. And the Darwin team's been hard at work releasing software and has made tremendous progress over the last couple of years. One of the things that I prepared to try to think about this is within the OHDSI community, we've released a lot of software as packages on our CRAN. And one of the nice things about that is you can actually go see how many downloads of OHDSI software there's been. And since we're at the 10-year point of OHDSI, we started our first package back in 2015. And already to date, OHDSI packages have been downloaded almost 800,000 times, which is really a staggering number of statistics if we think that each of you might want to have it on your laptop once. Probably, if you're like me, you probably have to learn how to install packages a whole bunch of times, but even still, I have not downloaded 800,000 times. One of the things that I think is actually super exciting, though, is that the Darwin project, in only a couple years, has already now released 6 open source packages and already has 40,000 downloads of those packages, which I think is a really remarkable accomplishment driven straight out of here in Europe. OHDSI is also really proud about our scholarship, trying to focus on evidence dissemination, and a primary mechanism of doing that is through scholarly dissemination through publications. And last year we were excited that we had over 600 collective publications as a community. We also try to look at the relationships between authors, and one of the things that we remark on is that it's really nice to see the interconnectedness of the OHDSI community and the co-authors who are collaborating together. If you were to go out to zoom in on this particular graph, you're going to see a lot of European leaders right at the middle, at the heart of the work that we're doing, that are really fostering these collaborations. And I think that's an important thing to recognize the leadership role of OHDSI. But just to highlight over the last several years why you all are recognized as leaders in our global community, I want to showcase that if we look at publications and we ask the question, how many publications have been done with across the global community, and of that, what fraction of them have European co-authors? When we started, this project originated back in the OMOP days when this was a US-based project and we didn't have many European collaborators. Steadily, as our community has grown around the world, we've seen the impact of Europe continue to grow. And over the last 3 years, the majority of publications in our OHDSI community have involved European collaborators. So when Peter asked me the question, can you talk about OHDSI Global and the role of Europe, I'd like to really reframe that as the leadership role that OHDSI Europe plays in the whole of the OHDSI Global community. And just to highlight some of the really nice work that's happened just in the last couple months, OHDSI Europe is leading in data standardization. This is a paper that was just recently published in PDS, focusing on calculating daily dose from the OMOP Common Data Model. OHDSI Europe is leading in open source development. This is a paper published from our European colleagues, focused on Markov modeling and cost effectiveness analyses, coming out of many, I see several of you co-authors in the room here. OHDSI Europe is leading in methods research. AX recently published this paper in JAMIA looking at evaluating penalization methods for large models, really pushing the boundaries of what is now can be considered scientific best practices for large-scale analysis. OHDSI Europe's leading in clinical applications. Just this year, Marty led this paper that was published in Lancet Respiratory Medicine, looking at the effectiveness of COVID vaccines for long COVID. But what was super exciting to me, not only was a demonstration of an OHDSI, a study using the OMOP Common Data Model, but that the team further replicated the study in Norway, demonstrating, and actually I really like this summary here, demonstrating not only consistent results now across 4 European countries, but also demonstrating how a federated analytics can be used across national borders to analyze linked real-world data. And by using the same exact reproducible scripts, we can improve generalizability and reproducibility. This is something OHDSI Europe is leading. OHDSI Europe is leading in clinical applications of patient-level predictions. Our colleagues in Denmark continue to impress us with actually demonstrating how we can actually use prediction models to predict mortality and use that to improve better care. So with all of that, we have a lot to be proud of as an OHDSI global community, and a large reason for that is because of all the work that you all have led as an OHDSI Europe community. I'm very proud of the work that has been accomplished in all of the areas of collaboration, but I also think that we need to not be satisfied yet. As Peter pushed, and I'll try to reinforce, our job's not done until we fulfill our mission of a comprehensive understanding of disease and treatments around the world. And what I see is tremendous progress in data standardization, but still a need for us to further reinforce really what does it mean to have a quality, reliable system. I see an explosion of open source development happening and tremendous work being led out of OHDSI Europe, but I also see a somewhat disconcerting sign that we have an awful lot of packages that have been developed by an individual or only one institution, and not nearly enough collaboration across institutions or across the world. I see phenomenal work in methodologic research that's really pushing the boundaries of how we do causal inference and patient-level prediction. But I also recognize that in that space, we need a lot more empirical evaluations that are at global scale. Not just testing an idea in one database, but really verifying that an idea will work in Europe, in North America, and Asia Pacific regions. And in clinical evidence generation, I think it's just very bluntly, I'd say, like, we're not there yet. We've got hundreds of databases around the world. We've got hundreds of databases here in Europe, but there are still way too many questions that remain unanswered that patients deserve the answers to. And until we can actually come together as one community to deliver that evidence, our job's not done yet. So with that, I want to thank you all for your leadership as an OHDSI Europe community, for all the work that you're going to be demonstrating throughout the day. And I want to assure you that the world is watching you as a global community. We're excited by the progress you're making, and we're delighted to collaborate with you throughout the rest of the world. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Renske, who is going to walk you through our next session, including a discussion of all of the great national nodes that have been built up.
Thank you, Patrick. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to move around on stage a little bit because I really do not like standing still. I'm glad you mentioned, Pat, that there's not enough collaboration yet, because yesterday we had a nice meeting with the European node leads, and we've decided we are going to raise the bar on working together and collaborating. So I will tell you a little bit more about that later. But first, let me give you a little sneak peek preview of what's about to happen in this session. We have a nice representation from a lot of European countries. We've got Denmark, the Netherlands, Germany, and Switzerland having presentations. And then there's also the UK. This is a European symposium. Why is the UK here? All right. But first, on behalf of all of the node leads, I can tell you that we are very proud that we have made it to the main stage this year and that we are actually on the program. Last year I moderated this session and I secretly snuck in a slide in the slide deck about the national nodes, and this year we've actually made it, so I'm very proud about that. What am I going to introduce? Well, we're going to talk about some collaborations that we would like to do. But first of all, I would like to ask you guys a question. Whether you know what these countries have in common. Sorry? Stripes on their flag. Really? Is that the level today? Come on, what do these countries have in common? National registries? Oh, I wish we could. I wish we all could use that. No, guys, this is a session on national nodes. Excellent, thank you. These are the 4 new national nodes that have been established in 2024. Come on, you know. I know it's Monday morning, but wake up, guys. A very big welcome to these 4 nodes that are joining us, which means that we are now up to 13 national nodes in Europe. What are these national nodes? As part of the Eden project and the OHDSI European Collaboration Center, at one point we decided it might be good to foster some more collaboration, both on a national and on an international level. And we decided it would be nice if we could set up these national nodes to make sure that within countries, people start finding each other more easily, and that we could also facilitate more collaboration between these countries. So that's when we started this national node initiative. The idea is that we start working together. What we already noticed, for example, in the Netherlands, that there are quite a lot of people who are very eagerly trying to map the exact same medication data to the OMOP CDM. And one person's already done it, and somebody else goes and does it too. And I think it's great that everybody wants to do it, but if it's already out there, let's get out and share it and help each other to improve it instead of all making the same mistakes. So mapping would be a great way to work together, but also doing studies together nationally and internationally is something that we really hope to facilitate as national nodes. So these are the 13 nodes that have now been around for a little while. And I'm very pleased, and I snuck this one in last night because we got the application I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, that Finland is now actually in the onboarding process. So they will be joining us as well to get from that ugly number 13 to 14 nodes. As I mentioned before, we had a node leads meeting yesterday. That was we do that twice a year, and this is the first time we actually did it face to face. And that was there was a lot of energy in the room. One of the things we talked about is that we want to start the drug challenge, meaning that we are going to make an inventory of all the drug vocabularies that are being used in Europe, and also which ones have been mapped to the OMOP CDM. So expect to get a little questionnaire from us in the next couple of weeks so we can start doing this, and we will definitely have results to you back to you next year at the symposium, and hopefully earlier, to see what kind of drug vocabs we are using. We also had a nice discussion on working on a proposal together to get some money to support more networking and education within the community, so that looks to be a promising thing. All right, I have another question for you, and while you think about this question, the question is, what do these countries have in common? I would like for the 13 node leads to come and join me on stage. And they're not very happy because I told them yesterday I have a surprise for them and they don't know what it is. So let's see who's here first. Peter said I had to make them recognizable. Let me get Sula first. There you go. You get this one. Are you guys thinking about the answer or not? Let me see. You can double it if you want. Denmark and Norway, they're like Superman capes. If you do them this
Superman
way.
capes, okay.
Superman capes. Superman capes. Does anybody know the answer yet? I didn't get the light blue, so you're going to be half Dutch, half Luxembourg. All right. Is this giving something away to the answer to this question? What do these countries have in common? Anybody? A lot of data converted. Okay, that sounds good. Listen, it's not all about OHDSI, okay, in the world. There's other things going on. Those are the 8 countries that have qualified for the European Championships football, which will be held in Germany this summer. So, yes, that inspired me to, as Peter told me that I had to make these nodes visible as their own country, and I thought, what am I going to do? I'm not going to put them all in a t-shirt with a flag, so I thought I'd do something that is football related. And as you see, the Red Devils are there with their little stick. And the countries that are not involved in the European Championships, unfortunately, they have less gadgets. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now, and I will pass the word over to our... Oh, that's too quick, to our node leads. And we're going to kick it off with Belgium. Lisbeth.
All right, thank you. Yes, so indeed, I'm representing OHDSI Belgium, which had this formal kickoff exactly 1 year ago, also as a prologue of the OHDSI Symposium. And just maybe with a raise of hands, can the OHDSI Belgium contributors raise their hands? They're mostly on the bottom. Oh, that's great. So indeed, if you haven't seen each other, but I'm assuming you did, because we already had an extremely interesting OHDSI Belgium all actors meet yesterday. So since our initiation, we actually have managed to establish a quite active community of 140 individuals representing 64 different Belgian organizations, representing also all different stakeholders. So we have researchers, industry, regulators, and then obviously the 15 active data partners that were already part of the EDEN network are also part of OHDSI Belgium. For now, we're mainly focusing on workshops, community building and raising awareness, because we saw that these would be so-called low-hanging fruit activities, mainly to bring the community together. But yesterday we have been talking about making it much more concrete and discussing our strategic activities, which would really again be community building, education and awareness raising, but also really formulating clear guidelines on how some of the vocabularies and mapping should be adopted in Belgium, and to actually do also studies and showcase these use cases. So I'm looking forward to what's ahead. Thank you.
And hello, I'm Andreas from Zealand University Hospital in Denmark, and on behalf of the Danish OHDSI node, I'm here to say that we've just established a national node in Denmark, and it has been a very humbling experience seeing across Denmark how many organizations were super interested in actually creating a network to help facilitate the use of OMOP and help it to improve clinical care in Denmark. And we are super excited, but we've just established this April, so not much work has been done yet. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sulev Rijnbeek, and Raivo Kolde is also here, and probably all the Estonian members can raise their hands. There's quite many of you. A very new established national node. Although quite a lot of members already, 6 organizations, but Estonia is also a very small country. You may wonder, what about one data partner? Actually, we have many OMOP datasets already, but the University of Tartu, which is the leading organization, has just done most of the ETL for them, and we are like providing the data sources for different studies. But newcomers are already coming up, and probably next year we have even more data partners.
Hi, hello. I'm Ines from the University of Technology in Dresden, and we are actually pretty long existing since 2021. We are not too many members still, only 52, but we are growing. And my amazing colleague, Michelle, I can't see you. She and we are leading the node together. The leading organization is the University of Technology in Dresden. So if you ever have to come, the chance to come and visit us, it's wonderful there. And in 2024, it's the first year for us where we have done a lot of workshops, and for the first time we also have political attention driving the topic for us. So we decided to do a first study-a-thon in autumn this year, and we are very happy for this chance and looking forward. Maybe someone of you have ideas or lessons learned you can share with us to get forward here. Thanks.
Hello, I am Pantelis from the Center for Research and Technology, Hellas, Greece. We have started the node in 2021. We currently have in Greece 5 data providers funded by EDEN. We have many hospitals and many organizations that seem to be interested. The big news is that this year we have completed the ETL process of a big hospital with about 1.5 million patients. So this is our biggest development. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chen, and I'm leading the Israeli node. I apologize for my voice. I'm recovering for a vicious cold, and hopefully by next year I will be able to sing. So we are, as Renske told you, we are a relatively new node. We just had our kickoff meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had more than 50 people from the main Israeli health organizations, academia, industry, and government all came to our institute, to the KI Institute, and talked about what's OHDSI and what we want to do within this within our national node. We have some great plans ahead, and again, I hope that next year we'll have a chance to discuss some of the achievements we have made. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucia Sacchi. I'm from the University of Pavia in Italy. And our node, OHDSI Italia, was started in 2022, so 2 years ago. And it already involves several partners from industry and SMEs and data partners. We have been working a lot in the past 2 years with the goal to try to establish the first studies using the OHDSI network in Italy, and also working a lot on all the regulatory steps that our data partners needs to perform to get there. So I hope next year we will be able to show you the first results on our studies.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Also from my side, Andreas Kramer, ITTM, representing the Luxembourg node. As you can see, not necessarily the biggest, but I promise you collaboration is really at our DNA, and we will go out and try to interact with as much project as possible. A founding partner is also the LIH. Some of you might have heard about the Luxembourg Institute of Health, and they do have already also a big project in this field called Clinova. And as said, yes, you will see us again for sure. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So Renske and I are leading the Dutch national node, and we're very happy to have seen an increase of 110% in the number of members this year. Also, we already have 8 data partners involved in the national node, which we're very happy about, and we hope to grow this in the future. We have meetings face-to-face approximately once every 3 months, and this is mostly because we really like to embrace this work mentality that's best described by this popular phrase from Rotterdam, which is niet lullen maar poetsen. So very loosely translated, this means don't bullshit, more cleaning. So in other words, just stop talking and start doing something. So we first did a brainstorm of topics of interest that we thought were both of interest to the members to collaborate on, and also that would benefit most from this type of collaboration. And then we identified 2 first topics to work on, which was first mapping the basisgegevensset zorg from FHIR to OMOP, which is similar to the International Patient Summary. And there's actually a poster being presented today in the Collaborator Showcase at stand 60 about this. And furthermore, we plan to do a study-a-thon characterizing breast cancer patients, where we mainly intend to assess whether we're ready in the Netherlands to perform network studies and to answer clinical questions on a national level and which bottlenecks we still experience. So I hope to present these results to you next year.
So the Norwegian National Node we established half a year ago. We are only 3 data partners, but we have representatives from government, from university, from hospital, and from national registries. And we mainly share experience of mapping and technical things. All partners are looking outward towards network studies, so partner in DIGICORE and Eden, Darwin. And we also try to collaborate with the other Nordic countries as we have so much in common. So that's our main goals. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so my name is João and this is Paulo. We are here on behalf of Promptly, representing the Portuguese node. We are still a fairly recent node, but hopefully you can get a show of hands on who is representing Portugal here as well. Not a lot of people, but we hope to push towards having more and more members, and especially to use those data partners and members to to start creating some interesting national multicentric studies and hopefully generating some nice evidence out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Hola everyone. How many Spanish people here in the room? Wow, a lot of them. Good, good. Well, Real Madrid won. We are fighting. We are a lot of partners and SMEs. We are fighting for the first place with United Kingdom and Italy, I think, but we are a lot of partners. We set up several working groups. One of them about medications. That is, I think, is a very important thing for everyone. But yesterday, we set up 3 new groups. One focused on artificial intelligence and natural language processing, another one focused on training, and another one focused on environment, that I think is another important issue to talk about. We have had several meetings. In fact, considering that we had one face-to-face meeting yesterday, we have had 3 face-to-face meetings and several online meetings. And our idea is to organize a study-a-thon for the Q4 this year in Barcelona. So a lot of interest. We are collaborating in OHDSI, in Darwin, in Eden. We have a lot of work. So we are really happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, I guess we're not the best at making slides, as you can see, but we have other strengths. We have a logo. We've had a very successful annual meeting last year, our inaugural meeting in Oxford, and this year we're going to have another meeting in London where we'll have expecting another 100 to 150 people confirmed. We're extremely lucky that we have formal support and partnership with Health Data Research UK. And I think something that's very exciting in the UK, and is not really our responsibility, is that NHS England has set up all these secure data environments that will be mapped to OMOP. So without our involvement, there will be loads of data mapped to OMOP in the UK that we will leverage for the OHDSI UK node. And we have some national initiatives brewing that are very exciting. We just heard that we are going to have a HDR UK OMOP real-world evidence pilot network, watch this space, and we are also collaborating with Innovate UK to set up our Centre for Regulatory Sciences. Thank you.
So Peter, I don't know if you heard, but I think every node said that next year they're going to present results. Maybe we need to make this a 2-day symposium next year. All right, thank you all very much. That would be the end of the national node part, so you can graciously exit, unless we all want to do the can-can, Andreas, what do you think? No? Next year, we need to practice that first. Thank you all very much. Hang it by your stand. Yeah.
You can keep it.
If you want to, yes. It's for the kids, Lisbeth. Yes, so all the national nodes do have a poster. Come and meet us, have a drink, have a snack at the poster between 1 and 4 on deck B in the La Fontaine room. We will all be there. Time to move on. I think we're still on time. The next presenter will be Andreas from Denmark. Leave those there for you. Back and forth. 2 buttons.
And this mic?
That should work.
All right. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm the second Danish Andreas on stage. I can see maybe the third in total, as far as I can count. I'm a medical doctor and a PhD student at the Department of Oncology at the University Hospital of Copenhagen in Denmark. And I'm here to give a brief presentation or overview of the ONCOVALUE project with the title of Implementing Value-Based Oncology Care at European Cancer Hospitals. I see we had some different titles in the abstracts. So, there we go. I think this is a very fitting venue to present the ONCOVALUE project, since, as I'm sure you will see in a short while, the goal of ONCOVALUE and OHDSI aligned to a great extent or maybe even completely. ONCOVALUE is a Horizon Europe funded consortium consisting of both private and public partners, together representing the countries of Portugal, Italy, the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, and Finland. And the consortium is headed by, coordinated by the team in Helsinki in Finland. The aim of ONCOVALUE is to generate high-quality, real-world observational evidence, utilizing already existing electronic health records, and make this data available in health technology assessment. Randomized clinical trials remain, of course, the gold standard when evaluating new healthcare technologies, including new oncology treatments. But there is a gap between the efficacy seen in the randomized clinical trials and the real-world effectiveness seen when later applying these approved therapies in the real-world cohort of patients we see in the clinic. This is, of course, due to several factors, one being strict inclusion and exclusion criteria of the randomized trials themselves that are designed to answer one or a few narrow scientific questions to the exclusion of others. A study might be designed, of course, to compare a novel treatment with a standard of care in a specific population or cohort of patients that have already received a certain number and types of treatment. Another reason is a bias in patients who even enroll in randomized clinical trials in the first place, and they are probably not representative of the total patient cohorts. They might be significantly older or more comorbid than the study populations might be less younger and less comorbid than the real-world populations that we treat in the clinic. At our hospital, I'm a training oncologist. At our hospital, depending on tumor type and type of treatment, we might see patients that are as much as 10 years older in the clinic compared to the study populations that they supposedly reflect. Also, when evaluating treatment on rare tumors or rare subtypes of tumors, it can be challenging to gather large amounts of evidence, even in the randomized trial setting. So in many areas we lack evidence that we provide the value to our patients with the treatments that we have, and observational data we believe can support this. Another value where high-quality observational data can support randomized trial findings is in adverse events reporting, of course, where reporting of adverse events in the post-approval phase 4 trial setting might be deficient or lacking to some extent. Finally, the high cost of the novel oncology treatments, as I'm sure you're very well aware of, is a challenge and a growing challenge to many healthcare systems. So, in a nutshell, ONCOVALUE aims at generating high-quality observational evidence on efficacy and safety of oncology treatments and implementing this data in health technology assessment models. To accomplish this goal, we in the consortium will implement the OMOP Common Data Model and establish a platform for analyzing both structured and unstructured electronic health record data, including patient-reported outcome measures. Specifically for oncology treatment, medical oncology treatment can be quite complex, as I'm sure many of you also are aware of. We are dealing with many lines of medical treatment in various settings, such as metastatic setting, neoadjuvant setting, or adjuvant settings. And each line of treatment can itself be composed of multiple drugs given in combination or in sequence. So not even accounting for radiotherapy and surgical interventions, clear definitions of oncology treatment variables are indeed very much needed. And that's also a key part of the early work in the ONCOVALUE consortium. We are well underway with conducting clinical use case or pilot studies in early breast cancer and non-small cell lung cancer. Another key scope of the ONCOVALUE consortium is the development of federated analyses platforms to, of course, allow for multi-center observational trials while allowing data to remain securely stored at each site. With regards to unstructured data, we will develop AI-based tools to analyze both radiology image data as well as natural language processing on electronic health record nodes such as clinicians nodes or radiology reports or pathology reports where data might not be structured. So, in conclusion, as I know that this audience are well aware of, a wealth of information in the electronic health records already exists. It is a challenge to unlock this real-world data, both in terms of technical challenges and also in terms of trial method designs. But we believe as well that it's possible and we can generate reliable evidence to support findings and inform findings from randomized clinical trials and also study populations that might have so far not been well studied. So that is more or less what I wanted to say. Once again, thank you for your time, and I'm excited to be here.
If we have time at the end of the session, we'll do some questions then. Okay, so our next speaker unfortunately could not join us today due to personal circumstances, but we have we found Jose Fernandez, who kindly volunteered to give the presentation today that Piers would give. So, the floor is yours, Jose.
Thank you, Renske.
Thank you.
Yes, for those of you, I'm not Piers, and he really apologized that unforeseen circumstances prevented him to be here. But in any case, I've been involved in the constitution of DIGICORE from a previous role when I was Chief Data Officer at Institut Curie, and I was sitting on the board as one of the founding directors of DIGICORE before I stepped down to move back to the UK to join IQVIA. And from IQVIA now, I'm still heavily involved in DIGICORE, which is this public-private partnership with a mission to do research on outcomes, to improve outcomes in cancer. But it is more than just creating a network, which I will be presenting. It's also having a network of researchers, I think is the most important achievement so far of DIGICORE, and you will see a number of posters which are presented here today. But if we look into what information from the epidemiological registries show, we can see that by just improving quality of care in Europe, we could save 100,000 lives a year. No need of new drugs, it is just improving equality to treatment. And lots of people have been asking, I will ask, if your organization is listed here, would you mind standing up whilst I present this slide? DIGICORE now, I know some of you, okay, yes. It will make sense at the end of the slide, so please stand up. So, no, stay up. But there are more people than Norway here, Come on, guys, don't be shy. Well, right now, DIGICORE includes 37 cancer centers in 18 countries. This is about 160,000 cancer diagnoses a year. Half of them are OMOP'd. The organizations which are involved here, they have received funds to do OMOP. But we estimate that even with these organizations, in this era of precision medicine with these kind of molecular targeted tumors, we need 100 organizations. And the reason I was asking you to stand up is that if you are from one of these countries and you are not part of the DIGICORE, you might reach out to some of these colleagues to get an unbiased view of what it is like working in an OMOP organization, which we have made OMOP the core of our approach. Now you can sit down. Thank you very much. You can tell that this slide has been made by a colorblind person, so probably for him makes sense, the colors. My son is colorblind as well, so I shouldn't. So I will try to explain the colors here. But basically, I know that it might sound like heresy in an OMOP meeting and say that perhaps we find that semantic interoperability is not enough. And what I say is not enough is one of the exercises that early days in the creation of DIGICORE was led by Piers was trying to find what would be a minimal data set of items which will be capable of characterizing a cancer patient. And across this, we managed to still down, I was involved from the Paris side of things, so we started with a very French data set. We added input from the UK, we added input from Germany, from Italy, and we ended up with this MEDOC, which we call minimal data set for cancer, where with 40 items considered essential to provide good quality of care, as they were considered essential and there were only 40, we would expect that when we asked the hospitals to map those concepts to their EHRs, we hoped that they would be well captured. And you can see that we have a diversity of mappings. We have some organizations, and there is no pointer here, right? It's just, okay. So towards the left, with the very rich yellow, we have the organizations where they have highly structured, capturing most of these 40 concepts. And this is, where a traditional ETL approach would be able to extract that information. Then we have a middle ground, which is what we call archetypes B, where part of those elements are structured, they are in orangey color, but then we have quite a few cyan and bluish, light blue color, which are elements which are either on free text or semi-structured in some way that is not easily accessible by an ETL. So this requires NLP, and in some cases even optical character recognition to extract the information into an NLP. And then we have some organizations as well across Europe where lots of these elements are completely missing. Missing in ways that, for example, comorbidities are not captured, or, for example, performance status is not captured. So there is no way of getting that information. So even with the help of technology, we wouldn't be able to get this information. So, when we hear ambitious initiatives in Europe, like the European Health Data Space, say, oh, data is there, so we want to exploit it. Data might be there, but not readily available for use. Or, from my time in Paris, I know that, one of the organizations towards the left, to be there, it was over 10 years of investment in data improvement, creating an office of a chief data officer, and millions of euros invested in infrastructure. So those organizations could extract information, and even in those cases, information is captured in the context of clinical care. When you're doing secondary research, you have to play with that data. So something to keep in mind. And with this messiness of data in mind, when we created this network, DigiONE, and it's something that we presented early this year in a correspondence piece in Nature Medicine, we created this open innovation community, and I don't have the time to go through all the elements, but for example, I've mentioned this MEDOC, this minimal essential number of concepts which enable us to get a snapshot of that particular tumor. Number 3, this PAN format is not just about ETLs. We are engaging with NLP providers and optical character recognition firms to be able to extract that information. And then the final, for example, the point 5 about federation. We agree with it. Here we are aligned with IKNL in terms of saying Atlas can get us to some point, but we need more, and that's what we are doing. Federated learning, we're using the Vantage 6 infrastructure, and there are a couple of posters from, Stelios, Elizabeth, if you raise your hand, so people can see, there are interesting posters that without using patient-level data, we can produce Kaplan-Meier curves for those in that network. How do we work? No matter the cancer, we start with this is natural history with care quality assessment approach. We call it Dynasty, and we create a cohort. Here you have an example of what a cohort look like. And even with those cohorts, we have to do network normalization. For example, when you look into metastasis or emerging metastasis, you need to make sure that everybody captures metastasis in the same way, and not somebody captures brain and somebody captures different parts of the brain, leptomeninges, differentiated for brain. But also, when we look into the objectives, you can see here amongst the primary objectives, there are we take into account the multimodal treatments. And this is a hospital-driven, it's a patient care-driven initiative, and it's not pharma-driven. And this is how, we have, again, posters on we have submitted an abstract to ESMO, finger crossed that it will be accepted. And, we are very happy with how the federated learning approach is delivering. And this is also, using this clinical audit approach, even for those centers or those countries with complications in terms of use or reuse of the clinical data. This, for quality improvement, they are allowed to use the data. And finally, we are moving from this world where you have armies of clinical research associates retyping and capturing medical records in CRFs. We are moving towards this space where we are starting to produce clean cohorts, annotated cohorts, and we have debugged OMOP instances. And obviously the goal is going into these narrow cohorts where we can go for safety ascertainment research, we can look into biomarker validation, and this is the road ahead. And if you were interested in joining this community, I will be around, and we have a number of posters. Don't hesitate to reach out to the DIGICORE community. Thank you.
So thanks very much for that, Jose, and to do this on the spot while Piers wasn't here. Very much appreciated. Our next speaker from our Dutch national node, I'm just proud. Sofia, floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sofia Bazakou. I'm from the Hyve, and I work as a data engineer. I've been working in OHDSI projects the last 5 years, so it's extremely exciting to be here to present to you the PHEMS project, which is about new strategies in health data sharing. And in the next 3 slides, I'll try to talk to you about what is PHEMS, why it's needed, and how the consortium is approaching the work. And starting with what is PHEMS? So PHEMS is short for the really long sentence you see on the top of the slide that I won't try to read out loud. And it's a public-private partnership collaboration. There are multiple European hospitals, universities, and tech companies involved. The project started last October and is going to run for 3 years, and it's funded by the European Union and the UK Research and Innovation Fund. It's coordinated by Helsinki, as the ONCO project we heard was as well. We are here to present because the OMOP CDM will be used for the data storage of the real-world data, but also the synthetic data that will be produced in the project. And why we need this? So PHEMS is about pediatric data, and there are not enough patients with complex pediatric or rare disease data in each country, which means limited research availability. There's also even less real-world data for newer and expensive therapies. And also with artificial intelligence and machine learning being more prompt in research, larger data sets are needed. Same for if you want to do benchmarking. So PHEMS is aiming to increase the access to data whilst protecting the privacy, perform predictive modeling and machine learning in a federated setting, and enable on-demand generation of synthetic and anonymized data sets. And how is the project set up? So as many consortium projects there are several work packages responsible for for the work. The main one is Work Package 2, which takes care of the designing and implementing the technical solution to enable the federated analysis on the data. Then you see on the top there 4 hospitals that are providing data. Who's Erasmus MC, GOS, and SJD. And there is going to be validation based on synthetic data and raw data from these hospitals on the methods. There is also going to be on-demand data anonymization. And all this wouldn't happen without a framework for how to govern the data, and also there is a plan to communicate everything to the public. We have 2 posters here. If you want to learn more, one is about the use cases that will be the basis for the validation of the methods, and one about the anonymization and the synthesization of the data, which is another part of the project.
Thank you, Sofia. I got one more question for you guys in the room. For those of you that are from a country that has a national node, but are not yet part of the node yet, would you raise your hand, please? Okay, I see quite a few. You got to join your node, guys, okay? Go see them after lunch, have a little chit-chat, and see how you can help them out. All right, so our next speaker is from Germany. Ankur, if you will please come up.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. My name is Ankur Krishnan, and on behalf of the Ecraid consortium, I would like to talk to you about the Ecraid-based project, our OHDSI journey till now, and sort of the next steps that we have planned, and the future directions that we envision. This is okay. So Ecraid Base is a Horizon 2020 project, which started in 2021. And the Ecraid part of it actually stands for European Clinical Research Alliance on Infectious Diseases. And Ecraid Base is a WORM-based pan-European clinical research network that sort of facilitates research in infectious diseases and antimicrobial resistance research. It aims to address infectious disease outbreak, response, preparedness and response by improving the diagnosis, prevention, and treatment of infections. It is facilitated by a sort of European multidisciplinary clinical research network, which has the capacity and the capability to directly enroll patients, to generate evidence, to conduct really sort of broad range of rigorous clinical studies, and sort of also function as a platform for rapid response in case of a outbreak. One more thing I would like to sort of mention is since last year, Ecraid was established as a not-for-profit foundation, which is based out of Utrecht. So the way we sort of really think of Ecraid, and Ecraid really is a network of networks. And what I sort of mean by that is that at the foundational layer, we have these different networks which are sort of listed out here. So we have a network of clinics and hospitals and our own team of clinical liaisons, essentially, which we call ClinNet. We have a network of microbiology laboratories and microbiologists with expertise in antimicrobial resistance, which we call LabNet. We have experts in statistics and clinical study design, which we call StatNet. And then a network of infectious disease and AMR epidemiology and surveillance experts, which is EpiNet, and definitely last but not the least, we have a network of clinicians and researchers who have expertise in infectious disease research in children and in pregnancy. So at the core of Ecraid base, and essentially the first studies to really sort of leverage this network that we have in Ecraid are what we call perpetual observational studies. We have 5 of these currently running. And the European arm of a really sort of successful adaptive platform trial called REMAP-CAP. It's an adaptive platform trial which is on community-acquired pneumonia. And what a perpetual observational study is, basically what we call a POS, is a prospective multi-center observational study that can perpetually enroll patients to sort of address key clinical research gaps in infectious disease research, in the sort of incidence of infectious disease syndromes and the associated sort of risk factors. And through this, we sort of create a clinical research backbone upon which basically you can embed concurrently or sequentially different sort of studies. So observation studies, intervention studies initiated by investigators within the consortium in academia or commercial sort of pharma and industry. So currently we have 5 different POS studies which are running, and these are studies on ventilator-associated pneumonia in ICU settings, a study on complicated urinary tract infection in hospital settings, 2 studies, one study on acute respiratory infections in emergency room settings and another one in primary care settings, and then a study on unexplained febrile illness with sort of an interesting clinical presentation or epidemiology, which otherwise is sort of called disease X, and again in an emergency room setting. For all of these POSes, we collect, as of now, clinical laboratory diagnostic data, microbiological data through electronic CRFs. And for the POS disease X, interestingly, other than the data captured through the CRFs, we also actually get direct data from the lab information management system and metagenomic sequencing data, so which is a very sort of interesting next step that we are now going to explore as we convert that data or that study also into OMOP CDM. So through this sort of picture, essentially, I just wanted to give you an idea of essentially the spread of the geographical spread of the sites that we have right now. So as of now, we have 178 sites which are actively enrolling patients. And one of the things which was really sort of important for us, like a major focus for us in our project and in our consortium, is that usually sites from Eastern European countries tend to be a bit underrepresented in such sort of initiatives and such studies. And so we are very actively trying to sort of involve and sort of select and activate and even sort of build capacity by training in these sort of Eastern European sites. There's still obviously quite some work to do. So we are at a relatively sort of nascent stage of our OHDSI journey, I would think. And it started through the Eden 5th Open Call, through which we partnered with the brilliant Eden's Health team and to transform our study on ventilator-associated pneumonia to OMOP CDM. And right off the bat, essentially, there were some very interesting solutions that we had to sort of come up with. One of the first things was because we have so many sort of various stakeholders at different parts of the process, essentially, and literally over different parts of Europe, we needed to create like a collaborative work environment where we could work with sensitive patient data, but also an architecture which was sort of scalable, because we knew right from the beginning that we would have to eventually transform the rest of our studies also to OMOP CDM. And so we established a sort of scalable, sustainable, secure digital research environment-based architecture at UMCU, which helped us do a lot of this process. And we have a poster on this today, so please feel free to sort of visit us and learn more about this during the day. The other very interesting sort of challenge that we faced was in infectious disease research data, there is a certain sort of hierarchy which is not unique just to infectious disease research or AMR data, but there's a hierarchy, and what I mean by that is for a particular patient on a particular day, there might be multiple samples taken, and for each sample there might be multiple microorganisms identified, and if that's a bacteria or a fungi, there will be some sort of antibiogram data or antimicrobial resistance profile. And that information has to be sort of linked, in the hierarchy has to be maintained, and it has to be sort of queryable. And the other thing is there's a temporal nature. So what that means is from diagnosis to, let's say in our case, day 14 of a test for clinical cure, or microbiological identification to test for microbiological cure, that temporal nature, that link also needs to be established and sort of maintained. And for that, we sort of leveraged the oncology extension of the OMOP CDM 5.4. And that was a poster that we sort of presented last year at this symposium. And again, we would be sort of happy to sort of discuss this with you. So earlier this year, we sort of completed our transformation. The data source is now published in the Eden database catalog. Last year, we submitted our expression of interest to be a Darwin EU partner. And we have the Ecraid-based metadata published in the EMA real-world data catalog. And a month or so ago, essentially, we executed an MOU between Eden and Ecraid. And we're finalizing the framework agreement so that we can start sort of initiating or participating in studies. This is my last slide, and I apologize, this is a busy slide, but we like to think of it that we have big dreams. And so we are, through another project now, going to continue our transformation for the remaining of the post studies. And as I mentioned, one of the studies, especially DiseaseX, is something I personally am really looking forward to, because it's not just a particular data source that is data collected through CRFs, but also through LIMS and metagenomic sequencing data, which might be very interesting for us to sort of then leverage the GA4GH beacon tool. There's a lot of growing interest in our consortium regarding OHDSI, the tools, the packages, OMOP CDM, and we are organizing now a workshop to train and educate the researchers and the clinicians in our consortium. There's also a lot of interest in joining, actively participating in some of the working groups. And I've listed some of them out here. And for some of us who have more of a technical or a standards leaning, we obviously are sort of leaning towards the vocabulary part of it, the NLP part of it. But the clinicians and researchers really are interested in the patient level prediction working group and the sort of phenotype development working group. Another thing we sort of realized, and perhaps this is just sort of us, we perhaps missed it, but it seems that infectious disease research and AMR sort of research is relatively sort of underrepresented right now in the OHDSI community, barring, of course, COVID-19. But that would be something that we would really like to sort of perhaps initiate a working group which engages all of the different sort of stakeholders in this community and even sort of beyond, to then try to sort of develop some level of best practice recommendations and guidance, essentially, for more people who are coming and joining this community, for us to be better prepared again for a potential sort of outbreak and to be able to respond better. We also have been sort of in conversation with some of our other collaborators in another project to try to understand what if there is a potential to identify like a core AMR data structure, keeping in mind that there are a lot of different data sources other than just CRFs, which is really just a small part of the picture. And that could really also help us sort of streamline a lot of the process of ETLing AMR data coming from various different sources. The other thing, we sort of realized, even though the oncology extension obviously was very, very helpful and very useful for us, but for infectious disease research data and AMR research data and metadata, there might be, and the nuances and the sort of complexities that they have, there might be a case that sort of warrants for perhaps a microbiology extension or something along those lines. And so that is something that we would love to sort of discuss more. And last, but definitely not the least, essentially now, as we have more of our data sort of transformed to OMOP CDM, and we have more involvement with the sort of Eden, the OHDSI community, and the Darwin community, we would really like to sort of participate in and sort of initiate studies on diagnosis, prevention, and treatment of infections, infectious disease epidemiology, and AMR surveillance, pandemic preparedness and response, of course, and some really sort of interesting cases of clinical decision support systems for antimicrobial stewardship, and of course, many more. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you all for your attention. Yeah.
Thank you, Ankur. I can't help but being impressed when I see all these maps in the presentation with all the countries that are like highlighted. All these countries are participating. I think it's great. Nice. That's your collaboration there, Patrick. It's getting there. Okay, our last speaker, right from the heart of Europe, from Switzerland. Eva, please join us here.
So, good morning. Yes, I'm Eva from Switzerland. I'm working for Johnson & Johnson in a group of epidemiologists that focuses on rare diseases and special populations. And I'm very happy to present Federation to you today. Federation is the Pulmonary Hypertension Federated Data Network. pulmonary hypertension is an extremely complex disease with a lot of groups and subgroups, and some of these groups of pulmonary hypertension are very rare. For example, pulmonary arterial hypertension. This is a treatable but not curable form of pulmonary hypertension. So generally, there is a great need to do research in pulmonary hypertension, but it is very difficult to find data, to find fit-for-purpose databases, or to recruit patients into new studies. This is really challenging. Of course, one way to go would be to look into disease-agnostic databases, into large claims or EHR databases. That's what we are often doing. But it can be very challenging to identify the right patients for a study. And also, these databases don't have the clinical details that we sometimes need to do our study. So this is the reason why we initiated Federation, which is a federated data network of clinical pulmonary hypertension databases. So Federation was initiated by Janssen & Johnson, by my group in Switzerland, with help of colleagues from Belgium, but it has become a public-private partnership. And this is very important to us because we believe that this public-private collaboration can really drive research in pulmonary hypertension. We bring together databases from different countries, different origin, different purposes, and we believe that Federation can actually significantly increase transparency and reproducibility of real-world evidence generation in pulmonary hypertension. The way it works is that the data are behind firewalls, so every data asset owner is responsible for their patient-level data, and the patient-level data don't leave their institutions. Only aggregate data are shared. And also each database owner is responsible for ethical and legal compliance, for data privacy, and for data curation. So let's look into the Federation portal. That's what you see on the left side. So we have different sections. We have a data catalog, and you can see on the right side actually the databases that are currently part of Federation. We have 6 databases with data from Europe, from the US, and from Canada, with more than 12,000 patient lives. And all these databases have been mapped to the OMOP Common Data Model. And we actually published the paper, and we have a GitHub that shows how we did the mapping. Then we have the study catalog, where we report study results. Then we have some technical environments like the R-Connect or Atlas for developing programming code, for sharing queries. And one thing which I also want to highlight are our Federation dashboards. That's what you see on the bottom right. This is actually an interactive tool that allows you to look deeper into the data, to filter for specific patient groups that you are interested in. So this gives you actually a good oversight of the databases and data we have in Federation. How does it work if someone wants to conduct a study? So the first step is to look into the data catalog and look into the dashboards and see, do we have a chance to answer our research question with the Federation databases? If this seems promising, then we can do some more intense feasibility assessments, send out some programming code to understand which databases are fit for purpose for our study. Once this has been done, and we can confirm that we are probably able to answer the research question with the Federation databases, then a study team gets formed and created, and each study team actually consists of, at minimum, an epidemiologist, a statistician, and a clinician. And these people then, they develop the study protocol, analysis plan, and so on. And then the analysis plan actually gets translated into executable queries. So we have the OMOP Common Data Model, so we can actually create queries that can then be shared across Federation to generate evidence across our different databases. Then we receive the aggregate results, And yeah, depending on the research question and depending on statistical considerations, we might do some meta-analysis. But this really depends on the question and whether it's feasible to do a meta-analysis. In the end, we would all sit together, we would look into the results, we would draw our conclusions, write a study report, and publish the results. Publish them on Federation, but also do journal publications. And what you also see on the right hand, that's actually our governance structure. So we have the Federation board with the representatives from the different databases. And it's really a cross-functional, international, and interdisciplinary group of people and great brains that are in the Federation board. Yeah, so I hope I could convince you that Federation has really a good coverage of data, of people, that we have the chance to really use automated tools, to use data harmonization to accelerate research in pulmonary hypertension. And of course, such networks would also be useful for other rare diseases, other complex diseases. Yeah, so we encourage you to visit us at Federation or to visit me at the poster 68. And last but not least, I want to highlight that we are working on our first Federation network study. This is actually a treatment utilization study. We are looking particularly into a specific combination treatment in newly diagnosed PAH patients. And this study got inspired by a Darwin EU study. Darwin EU did the same study in a disease-agnostic network of databases, and we hope that we can complement the Darwin EU results with evidence from our disease-specific federated data network. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask all the speakers, the 5 speakers, to come back on stage? So because we have a little bit, like 2 minutes for questions, according to schedule. So the floor is open for questions. Patrick really wants to throw the box. So at least somebody on the top deck there has got to ask a question. No questions yet? Okay, I had one for you, Eva. You had the nice steps that you guys go through, and your second step was to form a team and to create a protocol. Can you give me any indication of like the time that it takes to go through that step? Just curiosity.
I mean, I must say, since we are now working on the first study, everyone was super motivated and it was very fast. I mean, the initial contracting was what took most time, but then for the first study, people was very immediately motivated.
But how fast is very fast? Like, did it take a week? Did it take 3 months?
I would say it take about a month to agree on the study, but once we agreed to do the study, every data asset owner said, yes, we have a statistician who wants to contribute. So this was within a week, I would say, after we decided on the topic. But it's the first study, so everyone is motivated.
Cool, thanks, yes.
If I may, because within the cancer community, in DigiCorE, we also have a protocolized approach. And the answer to your question is like, how long is a piece of string? It depends on the country. In some countries, there is a broad consent, and therefore they consider quality of care. There is no need for additional validation, and they are ready to produce the data. In other countries, you have to go through a national ethics review board, and it can take months. So we have the same approach, and we have studies where we have centers that they were ready to just go. And we have places where it took, the review boards every 3 months. So you go the first time, they come with questions, so you have to wait 3 months. So for those places, it might take 6 months, 9 months. But it is always this protocolized approach. We hope that the learning curve is that once these review boards understand the difference between clinical trials and real-world evidence, the process will be speeding up. But we have a similar approach with a protocol-based, and it's very diverse.
Yeah, I just feel it's such a shame that if we all have our data mapped and we're able to answer the questions quickly, that it takes, the whole process just takes such a long time. So maybe that's a little challenge we need to work on there with our regulatory boards and stuff. Are there any questions, or are you guys just dying for coffee? There's one here. Pat, you want to throw it? Yes, there you go, there you go.
Yeah, so to you again, you mentioned that the framework, brilliant framework by the way. I wonder what would it take in order to be applied for different rare diseases? I mean, I know that you're particularly interested in what you're doing now, but you mentioned it's very nice approach towards what you're doing. And so I wonder, could it be applied, or would Johnson & Johnson be interested to apply to different rare diseases, and what it will take?
I mean, I think it depends very much on the format of the new registry. So if it's already in OMOP common data model format, it will be faster, of course. But then if it's, of course, the question, how did they do the mapping, which version of OMOP, which custom mapping rules. So I think it's very difficult to answer the question. The onboarding process takes a while, contracting, mapping the data, and so on. But for new registry, it really depends on the size, complexity, type of data elements.
But it's possible.
Hmm?
But it's possible.
Yes, yes, yes.
Last chance. There we go. My lovely colleagues then are inviting you for coffee. Thanks for joining this session, and I hope to see you guys back later.
Magic. Tell me, isn't it really crystal clear? We got all that we need right here. Isn't this more than enough? You already know, but you can't explain.